Ryan, I wanted you to kind of give a little bit of a background on Spartans Illustrated and your role here on the site, and then talk a little bit about your history writing for MSU Athletics, because I think you've been doing that for a little while now.
Yeah, that's correct. So uh, you know, as far as Spartan Illustrated is concerned, a lot of us came over from the Only Colors. Rivals approached David Harms, who is our publisher and owner of Spartans Illustrated, about taking over for the previous site, Spartan Mag, that moved on. And he had some conversations over there with those, with the higher ups over there at Rivals and Yahoo, and then he started talking to me. I was, I think, one of the first people he reached out to kind of want to, see this vision through, to bring the Only Colors team and bring coverage to Rivals, where we would have, a bigger budget, more resources, more, help with the team, and more features and things of that nature that we're able to do. So, that kind of was going on behind the scenes for, a little while, a few weeks. And then, as of December 1st, the site switched over, you know, due to some contractual obligations. Nobody was able to say anything on either side. So, a lot of the subscribers didn't know what was going on. But, I think that our team handled it really well. I think, obviously people were a little surprised, and because that'll catch somebody off guard, like I totally understand that. But, it seems like people are starting to enjoy our content and the way that we do it. And, we have tremendous respect for the last site that was here. But we're going to do things, a little bit differently our way. I think they did a great job. But, I think that we bring a little bit different element to this. And, I think that we're really just, only a few days deep into this. And, we're really going to start ramping things up here and going to be able to, do some things that I think people are looking for. We're just kind of finding our footing, and, people can just be a little patient for us. We'd appreciate it, but, we're getting there, and I think we're going to do something pretty special here. And, as far as me covering Michigan State, I've been doing that for about 3 years as a credentialed media person. I've been writing about Michigan State with the Only Colors and other sites for about 5 years. Kind of just grinding away on the side, and, building up some connections, and learning the ropes of everything, and covering games, doing interviews, going to press conferences, talking to players, recruits, the whole thing. So I'm excited to kind of, bring all that experience here and do, and really raise up the level of what we're able to do here. So it should be fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it
think
should be.
it's gonna be incredible, especially since I don't know if anyone listening to or was paying attention to the rival site, but at the Only Colors, also obviously message board forum, same kind of deal there. They had tremendous respect for not only you, Ryan, but just the whole team in general and the coverage that we sort of provided.
Yeah, we really,
So
we
They were
really
sad
built
to
that
see
yeah,
us
site.
go.
yeah, and so I think I'm not sure how quick it'll be, but I think that within time, I think that we will not only surprise the people who were or are still subscribers, but also hopefully win over some new folks and build our own stuff from there. So
To kind of go into my next question, expanding off just like the basics of the site and kind of your history, one of your roles now at Spartans Illustrated is reporting on some different recruiting stuff. So I wanted to kind of get just your overall opinion on recruiting trends and what recruiting is looking like now under Mel Tucker's reign as the head coach here at MSU.
A lot different than the Mark D'Antonio days, but also you have to keep in mind that recruiting has changed a lot too, because now you have NIL stuff. You have transfer portal coming in and out that kind of messes with how you formulate your roster, and that affects your high school recruiting numbers too. But with Tucker versus D'Antonio, I think D'Antonio was more. He went for more of the regional type recruits and more of the, you might say, diamonds under the rough. Sorry, diamonds in the rough, and he would recruit Ohio and Michigan and these areas pretty well, but he didn't take that big of a national approach that Mel Tucker does. Tucker is, and his staff, with Saeed Khalif and the other people who are there leading MSU's recruiting charges, they have they're trying to build a national footprint, and they're not afraid to offer 5 stars in Texas or Louisiana or California or wherever they may be. If they see a prospect who they think matches, first of all, their culture at Michigan State, and second of all, they think they can help them on the field, then that they're going to go after those players. And with D'Antonio, and you didn't necessarily see that big of a reach nationally, and then on official visits, you saw it last summer. Tucker has the recruits posing with cars and doing some flashy things that you might have never seen under D'Antonio. So there are obviously a lot of differences there, but at the end of the day, the goal remains the same, and that's to add the players that they think are going to help them win in the future and eventually help them compete with the Michigans and Ohio States and win the Big Ten championship.
I think you're absolutely right. Things are way different. And I know for sure that Coach D would never pose in front of a car parked on, the grass in Spartan Stadium. Yeah. So that you're right. It's definitely different, but I think it had to change to keep up with the times and how recruiting is becoming, more of a national scene if you want to compete. I agree.
Yeah, it's definitely exciting, and you guys are absolutely right. It's I think honestly, like I have my confidence level right now. I know a lot of people with the season wasn't, obviously the season wasn't great. It was 5-7. And with that, a lot of people I feel like lost a lot of faith in Mel Tucker because it's not as glamorous as it was 12 months ago. But I don't think that that's changed, and my confidence level is probably at an 8. I guess the better way to phrase it would be that my concern level is at a 2. I am not worried at all. Assuming that Mel Tucker makes the right decisions in the staff that he hires. Stuff like that. But you guys are right too. Is in the more interesting stuff is that the recruiting landscape is changing so much with both NIL and not only that, but also the transfer portal. So Ryan, can you kind of give us some insight on that as far as where MSU is at? They're not going to find a guy like Kenneth Walker III every time, but do you think that MSU can get higher returns than they received last season?
Yeah, I think that, there's still the transfer portal is always going to be a bit risky, right? Because you don't know how that player is going to, come into your offense or your defense or your culture. And, to MSU's credit, I don't think that any of the transfers that they took last year or the year before, I think they were all really good culture fits. They didn't all work out on the field, but your hit rate in the transfer portal, it might be under a bit more scrutiny than it is, for high school rankings, because when you take a player who's already proven, you expect a little bit more out of them. But I don't necessarily know that the hit rate's any different than how many kids end up panning out from a high school class. So I think that with the transfer portal, Michigan State's already shown that they, are successful there. And if you're a kid who wants to enter the transfer portal, you can look at success stories like Kenneth Walker if you're a running back, or Jacoby Windman if you're a linebacker or defensive end, and a few others who came in and got a lot of playing time, found immediate roles either as a starter or as a contributor. I don't think that Michigan State, it doesn't appear that as many kids have transferred out. It's early on so far. We're only a couple of days deep since the transfer portal window opened. But I think me personally, I expected a few more names by now, and I think a lot of other people did too. And there'll still be more names to come that'll enter from now until January, then after spring as well. But I think that Michigan State is going to do what they've done the last 2 years, and they're going to identify the talent and the culture fit and the scheme fit, and those players are going. Maybe they'll get. If I had to guess, I would say it's probably going to end up being less than 10 transfer portal additions. I don't know for sure. It could end up being more or less or right around that number. That's kind of how I see it. That they still have some roster math to do to get down to the numbers and bring in, how many high school recruits plus transfer portal, additions that they want. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to say who is going to end up, coming to Michigan State. There's already been a couple who have announced that they're taking official visits to Michigan State, and that bodes well for MSU. But it's very early on in the process. Those players can end up taking visits elsewhere, but to more or less, I do think that Michigan State is going to be a net positive in the portal and find another. At least a couple players that are able to come in and contribute or start next year.
So to kind of go off of that, so you have a number in mind of what you're thinking, but obviously, like you said, you can never predict for sure with the transfer portal stuff. It's kind of just a wait and see. Just like a general question about the team as a whole moving into next year. I just want your opinions on what you think will happen next year as far as like if the team will be better, if we'll remain about the same, and like maybe some hopes that you have for next season, just to kind of wrap it up here. Predictions and hopes for football season next year with Mel, and kind of talk to me a little bit about not even with recruits or transfers coming in, like what needs to change at MSU with the football team.
Well, it can't get much worse, right? I mean, it can, but when, Mel Tucker is making the amount of money that you want, the minimum expectation needs to be a bowl game, very minimum. So, I think that needs to be the goal next year, at least 6 wins, but probably closer to 7 or 8. And it does depend who they bring in. It does depend on if Tucker plans to make any staff changes, and if he does, which coaches will he target and will he bring in? There are certain position coaches, or I don't think the coordinators are going anywhere, but Tucker made changes to his staff last year, and it could very well happen again this year. I'm not going to make any predictions on that. We'll see, but there needs to be improvements across the board. First of all, the injuries played a huge role in this season. I mean, the team was just decimated, especially on defense, right? So I don't know, a lot of those are out of your control, but I don't know if there's anything that needs to be done differently from a strength and conditioning or training standpoint to kind of prevent some of those. And other than that, I think, like we said, you have to get your guys in the recruiting class. Early signing days coming up. You have to, lock in the 12 commits that you have now. There's going to be probably a few more before then. But then, the other signing day in February, you have to make sure your class is finalized by then. You have to get your portal players that you want locked in. Get, the early enrollees that both transfers and recruits come in and, get an early start. And Mel Tucker's showing that he's not afraid to play freshmen if they're the best player at the position. So I think what you need is competition at every position, and that's what Tucker preaches. The best player plays. That might even include the quarterback position in spring. So we'll see. I mean, I think that there's going to need to be significant changes in all of those areas if MSU is going to improve. And Tucker is a relentless worker, and his staff is, going to do all the things that are needed to get there. We'll have to see how it pans out, but yeah, I mean, I definitely expect an improvement next year.
Yeah, so do I. I know, a lot of people like to reference, D'Antonio going like 6 wins, something like that. Mid-range wins. In his third season. And I don't even count. A lot of people subscribe to year 0, right? Like Tucker was hired and boom, COVID. You know what I mean? Like you can't. That's in my opinion, the third year thing. Just sometimes, in a way, it's not really that fair. Technically it's his third year, but. He doesn't. I think that he should get the benefit of the doubt, in my opinion. Sort of deal. But anyway, what's that?
I was saying that, yeah, I think that, it's easy to forget because of 2021 success that this team is still in a rebuild. And, a lot of the players that Tucker has had for the past 3 years were D'Antonio holdovers and lower recruiting classes. And, he's starting to get the roster up to where it's mostly his guys now. So, I think next year is very important to show success.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm on the right now I'm on board with anything that is less than more than 8 wins. Sorry, we just lost Sydney somehow. So that's kind of a mess. We were about to wrap up the show anyway, but we'll deal with that. So I'm gonna get Sydney back on board, and we're gonna wrap up real quick. Thank you for listening.